Coming to you from Orange County, California, this is the Jug Life Podcast with Max Ada and Chad Wesley Smith.
Hey everybody, Chad Wesley Smith here, bringing you another episode of the Jug Life Podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, the notorious MAX, as well as Max Ada. Max, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well. How you doing?
And we are here in Dallas, Texas, with our friend, Jailhouse Strong, one of the best powerlifting coaches in the world, Josh Bryant.
Glad to be on here. It's a privilege.
Josh, thanks for joining us. So if you're not familiar with Josh, he is the author of many books, and I think, without a doubt, one of, if not the best raw powerlifting coach in the world. Has coached at least 12 600-pound raw benchers, which I can't think of anyone else who's maybe got even two to their credit. So way ahead there. 900-pound deadlifts, a bunch of 900-plus pound squatters. Has coached people like myself early in my powerlifting career to a 2165 total at 308 and a 905 squat in reps at 308. Steve Johnson to the American record deadlift. Al Davis, Jeremy Hoonstra, James Strickland, huge bench pressers. Orlando Green, huge deadlift. Tons of amazing lifters. So if you don't know them, you should. You should be following them in all these places, and we're going to get a lot of good information about training and powerlifting and all sorts of good stuff with Josh today. And in addition to all of those really strong people that he coached, Josh is strong as shit too. You were the youngest to ever bench 600 pounds.
At the time,
right?
yep.
600 at 22 years old?
622 years old.
And you ended up benching 622.
I got yep.
I'm good. I don't even have this stuff written down.
Yeah.
This is just from memory. 810 deadlift. And you were powerlifting mostly in the USPF.
Yes, sir.
Right? Right, so tell us a little bit about what got you into powerlifting and your powerlifting career.
Okay, so I initially got into watching it was WE now, it was WWF at the time, and I was fascinated by his physiques. And one of my dad's friends was a pretty good powerlifter, or really good for back then, and he was squatting, around 700, and he was actually benching 545, and so we went down to watch him lift. And that was like 1988 when I was 7 years old. So since then, I started going to the YMCA, and I was sneaking in there like 6, 7 years old, hanging around these old school like bodybuilders, former like wrestlers, and a bunch of just crazy bastards in that place. And then I did my first meet in 1996. It was a bench press meet. Then I did another push-pull meet in 1999.
In 96, you would have been what, like
15.
15?
And then I did a full meet in 99 and then kept going after that. So I've been around for a while. I just, even though I'm not that old, I just got started really young.
Yeah, I mean, I remember finding the joshstrength.com, probably its first iteration of that back in 2001, 2002-ish.
Yeah.
And it was saying, world's strongest teenager. You might not have been a teenager still then, but I remember seeing that kind of stuff on there. And you doing these crazy lifts and crazy jumps.
Yeah.
I'll talk about those a little bit later. But so late 90s, you're competing full bore at that point. Mm-hmm. And kind of paint the picture of what is powerlifting culture like at that time. It was
a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of better stuff about it now, but there was some good stuff then too. I mean, it was sort of like, I guess to be accepted, there was like, I don't think nowadays it's cool that you have access to the top people real easily. Back then you didn't. You had to kind of like, make a phone call, and then like I go down to like Yorba Linda Barbell Club or somewhere, all these big strong dudes when I'm 19. It's like you get like a trial run, and you're like kind of like the plate bitch and stuff like that. And then once you like prove that you can hang, then you're like welcomed in. So it was kind of like exciting to get that welcoming in at that point. And it wasn't as like, I guess it wasn't as mainstream. It was like, now like, CrossFit and things like that, it's somewhat, not only mainstream, but more that way. But then it was like, us and them, like a commercial gym or something just wasn't acceptable to powerlift and things like that. So
still full of weirdos and everyone's a little bit off, right?
Yeah, totally. It was, I mean, and they probably had good business sense to make us out, but.
Yeah, when I started powerlifting, it was 2010.
Yeah.
And even then, it was a huge difference compared to what it is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I had a first meet in San Luis Obispo High School, and you could tell everyone there was a powerlifter. And now you go to a meet, it's 120 lifters, and you got 13-year-olds up to people's grandmas lifting, and it's guys like they do powerlifting after their 9 to 5, and that's kind of
there wasn't like there like if someone's like a 40-year-old lawyer powerlifting, like that was sort of the anomaly. It wasn't the majority, Yeah, for sure.
So one of the kind of iconic meets of that time was the Mountaineer Cup.
Yeah.
And that was on ESPN, right? And you're lifting Ed Cohen, Brian Siders, like all these really great lifters of the era. You got any
even
good
Scott
stories?
Cartwright had done it too.
Oh,
yeah, a bunch of different people. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and they did a couple different concepts because they were going to go to like a team concept, things like that. And I mean, they treat us like royalty there. So they had the first year we went there, this is like no joke. They had a buffet. It was like chicken breasts, hot dogs without buns, and all you can drink beer. For after the meet. And they were like, serving like these, it's a little backwoods West Virginia, but they had some sort of beauty pageant back there, and like while we're drinking beer and watching, it was just like almost surreal. And the next year went there, we had a lot of fun, and dude, those like Nick Busick, this is pretty funny. One time, so we went out after the contest. He's like, hey, you guys want to go out for a few beers or just lift it? I'm not one to turn that down, so why not? Walk in there, and no joke, you guys know who he is? He just died the other day. He's a really great guy. He ran it. Yeah, he was awesome. He was a former WWE wrestler. We walk in this bar in West Virginia, and he just points at the bar. He just points at this dude and goes like this. They brought us all drinks. It was crazy. And we're in there like had way too much to drink, and I remember he got up there and was singing "Papa Was a Rolling Stone" on karaoke, and it just the dude, there was like, people in there were like 80 years old and looked dead. It was like the most bizarre thing, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So it was like some great lifting. I hit my best totals there when I'd lift there because it's just the atmosphere was awesome, and I would have had a huge total in the last one, but I was having some issue with my bicep, and I couldn't get my arm fully supinated. So I went 749 deadlift opener, got it real easily, but I was hanging on by about 2 fingers, so I missed my big one, but still had a great meet, and it was a lot of fun.
And you were competing single ply.
Yep.
Then, right? So what was your best squat?
909. The thing was with the single ply is I hadn't really been competing raw, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get back into some gear. So I called up Inzer, and he made me I said, like, I don't really like the gear, so can you make me something kind of intermediate? He made me this outlaw suit that Fred Hatfield had used. Mm. And, when you're bigger, you can breathe better in it because it cuts the belt, it's cut down low. And I would get in there, feel like a stuffed sausage, and cut this down, you could actually breathe okay. And that worked pretty good. And then I didn't get much out of the bench shirt. I got, maybe like 15, 20 pounds out of it. It wasn't very much just because, I didn't practice it. I didn't like to train that way, and then deadlift would go raw, so.
Nice.
Did you do a lot of raw training outside of the shirts, outside of the suit and stuff, or did you train in the suit a lot?
Well, I did both because at first, I like raw was kind of like something people didn't really do. It was kind of like, it just wasn't even like an option. It's like, okay, it was like, 10 people doing it, and it wasn't really an option. So, okay, I'm gonna have to get better at the shirt. So I started practicing it all the time. Ended up getting better in it for a while before I'd bench 600. And I remember one day, and up into that point, my best raw bench, the period I'm talking about, was 545. So I went in there, started getting better in the shirt, went up to 555 at this commercial gym, and it just, didn't move. And I had put all my other, my tricep exercises and all that stuff had gone up. So I'm thinking, well, dude, this is gonna be like a joke. I'm probably hitting close to 600 now. And no, 555 pinned me. And then anyways, I went to a meet after that and benched 600, but I kind of felt guilty about it. You know what I mean? Because then it just, you know, I talked to Ed Cohn about it on the phone after. He's like, what, you just don't like the way it makes you feel after? He just said, yeah, it just doesn't feel like I've worked out after. So at that point, I was like, kind of like, you know, pretty pragmatic person. I'm saying, okay, I'm, you know, not really making a living just lifting weights. So I'm going to do it how I want to do it. And I'm going to, you know, start doing stuff raw because I like it better.
Yeah.
So as your lifting career goes on.
Let me say something else about it real quick. So sorry, but okay. So initially it wasn't like that. So I guess I never really had initially when I first started powerlifting, the idea was you get like 25 pounds out of a shirt. So basically what they used to say is whatever you can touch and go, you could pause with a shirt on. So it didn't really seem like that. Everybody gets 20 pounds, you know, raw, who cares? And then things started to change, I think a lot when the patent on the bench shirt expired 2002. So then you have all these different companies making it so it gets more competitive and they get better, obviously. So I think that's kind of when they went crazy. So initially it was just, you know, you don't train in it really. You just kind of the week before, like take your opener or something in it and go to the meet and hit a little PR.
As I figure, as a 600-pound raw guy, or you know, close to it at that time, if you saw a guy in the gym, he's benching 500 and you're benching 580. And then you go to the meet in the shirts and he beats you, like that's got to be like, what the fuck is this? You know?
I think that's why a lot of people like that have come to Raw, like that's what kind of happens, because like a lot of times, you know, you don't really have self-awareness of like, okay, I'm getting 200 pounds out of this shirt, but everybody else is. Then all of a sudden someone gets 300. Whoa, that's not good.
Yeah.
You know,
So as your lifting career goes on, you end up having an elbow injury. That what was that? And
that was bone spurs, and it wasn't an acute traumatic injury. It was like wear and tear, because that's kind of what I talk about now to people, is not going so heavy on all the arm movements, because I would go crazy. I'd hear like Kazmaier did such and such on tricep extensions. Okay, I'm gonna beat it. I'm gonna beat this. I'm gonna beat that. And I got so obsessed with like majoring in the minor, so to speak, that it caused me elbow problems, because like I got kicked out of one gym in high school because I did a 300-pound cheat curl. So I you know, boom, got it up. I got so excited, I just, you know, dropped the weight down, and I got like banned for this. They gave me like a month ban, and there was a gym in Oxnard. So, but I was doing stuff like that all the time. But you know, it wasn't smart in one sense, but it obviously got results fast too. So you know, I would change some things if I could go back, but it ended up being a good learning experience to benefit a lot of other people, so it's all good.
Yeah, you know, we were talking about that the other morning with Adam Nelson, and how the base of his training in high school was like 10 by 10 on multiple exercises in the same session, down to like 10 by 9, 10 by 8, 10 by 7. And no one would look at that and be like, oh yeah, that's a great foundation. But it produced an Olympic gold medalist, and he had this insane work capacity, or you know, Max had been doing max front squats 5 times a day since he was 12 years old. Yeah. And you know, I was doing all these different plyometric crazy ass workouts, 3, 4, 5 hours long. Yeah. You know, 5, 6 days a week. It's like, you know, when you're young, you're resilient, and the belief and effort in what you're doing can kind of take you a long way. But so the elbow problems, though, kind of forced a transition. Yeah,
so I could have kept. So I got a surgery on it, and this again, taking responsibility for your actions. The guy that did the surgery told me, like, when 6 weeks, you're back to training. So I got it, and like I didn't meet like 13 weeks after and benched 560, but I was down a lot in body weight, and it went up really easy. And then I could just tell there was gonna be more problems. So at that point, I'd kind of hung it up anyways, but I just would come back and do, you know, meet here and there, just like single lift meets. And then, I decided I started coaching more people. And at that point, when I was powerlifting, I didn't have really any focus outside of powerlifting. So I don't think I could have done it effectively if I kept going, because I was like, as Fred Hatfield would say, like a monk. You know, that was just everything revolved around the powerlifting, like everything, you know. If I'm going to squat that day and I'm at Walmart, I'm getting one of those, you know, motorized things and driving around, you know, it was like that kind of stuff. I mean, it was that, like everything was just revolved around it.
So I imagine that had to be the big transition for you kind of mentally. And Max, you know, has gone from being a a weightlifter to a weightlifting coach and a powerlifter to a powerlifting coach, and I've gone from competing in all sorts of different stuff to being a coach now.
Yeah.
And so how is that mental transition for you? Do you feel like you're a powerlifting coaching monk now? Or?
Yeah, more so. So, but you got better balance now too. So, but definitely because that I think the unhealthy obsession to that point, because if I could do it again, what I would say is, and I'll tell, like in the off season, just take it a little more relaxed. If you're gonna, if you have to push your Thursday workout to Friday, it's not gonna end the world.
Yeah, I've definitely found that for myself. Is it's easier to give the advice than to take the advice, and
sure.
And particularly if you're coaching yourself, it's hard to maybe see the forest through the trees kind of thing, and take that step back. And I've certainly made mistakes like that in regards to my own training. So now that you're coaching, you've coached all these super strong, incredible lifters. I got to experience your programming for a while, and I remember you had reached out to me after my first meet, and I don't think we had never met, but we knew each other through Noah. And Josh's brother was a shot putter a couple of years ahead of me in school, and so I think we kind of had a connection through there. And it would have been right towards the end of 2010 that we started working together. And he sent me
proofread your ebook too.
yeah. And he sent me the program, the first week of the program, and I didn't really know what to expect. And I'd only been powerlifting for 5 months, and had really no exposure to other powerlifters. Like I knew track guys and football players, and I was I didn't train with other powerlifters. I trained by myself, so I didn't really know what to expect. So I get this program, and I'm looking at this PDF on my computer, and I was like, this guy's out of his fucking mind. Like the first workout, I remember it very well. I think it was about 585 for a triple in the deadlift, then down to 495 for 6 sets of 4 with 1 minute rest between each set. And then it was a couple sets of 6 deficit deadlifts, bent over rows, GHRs, barbell shrugs, chin-ups, back raises.
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking at this thing like, this has got to be a joke. There's no way this guy expects me to do all of this. And I went through it and did it the best I could. The 1 minute rest periods, couldn't quite stick to that as it went. But as the program went and the second time through it, then 1 minute rest periods were no problem. But when I talk about this time of my lifting at seminars and everything, beyond anything, it opened my eyes to like what is possible.
Sure.
Because I would have never looked at that. When I looked at that program the first day and the way I felt after that first deadlift day and for many days after, I was like, you can't survive this. You can't improve off of this, and you get overtrained. But how hard do you think people can train? Like where are they selling themselves short there?
I also think you kind of got an advantage there from your background, because at the time, powerlifting was on more of like a low volume trend. So, people would work, when I was around, people would work up to like, a top double and, go out to eat after.
Yeah.
That was kind of it. So it was definitely like going against the tide of the times. So it was advantageous to not have like a prejudice going in, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think people can push themselves real hard, and as you know, the hard work's necessary, but it's not like you're doing it for the sake of hard work. I mean, there would be like a stopping point at some point, obviously. I just think most people had fallen short of it. Now we're seeing more people that are training harder, which is good. And you could definitely overdo it, but that was, within the realms of what's okay, just to the harder end.
Yeah.
Where do you did you have mentors, like a particular coach or mentor that like really influenced you in terms of when you transitioned from a lifter to a coach, or?
No, I had it more as like a lifter. So I had people, when I was lifting myself, that were real helpful for lifting, like, Ed Cohn, like a guy named Steve Hall, Fred Hatfield. I didn't know him at the time, but I read his stuff and things like that. But like from coaching and business, I didn't really have anybody. So again, that can be kind of advantageous too in some regards, because you don't go in there with any kind of like, prejudice. Because if, you're working a job, you're in some industry and somebody tells you the most you can earn is $60,000 a year, and that's kind of like a limit. But if you don't know anything, the sky's the limit in that regard. But obviously you make mistakes too by not having anybody. So it all worked out.
That's a good point.
So one of the things I think that's is sort of signature to Josh Bryant programming is a focus on a lot of explosive exercises, whether that's compensatory acceleration training, doing the jumps and that kind of stuff. I remember on the old joshstrength.com, seeing you do these jumps, like standing broad jumps up a set of like 5 stairs.
Yeah.
And you were big then. Like what was the heaviest that you got?
One time I weighed in at 315, but like of any kind of like consistency was about 306.
So about 300 pounds, and then I remember you getting really shredded and kind of, have been able to make these body composition changes. But you were doing those big jumps, and you were big then.
Yeah.
You had to be 280, 290 doing these huge jumps, and obviously Noah is extremely explosive. Your brother, the shot putter, and why is explosive training helpful to the powerlifter?
Well, first, to tell you a funny story, I figured it out, was one day in our backyard at my parents' house, we were just, messing around, and like they had this basketball hoop. We were jumping up, dunking these small balls, and then I was right before I deadlifted, and I went in there, and I just felt super explosive after. So a light bulb kind of went off, like, okay, there must be something to this. So, I mean, because how much force you can produce is going to be enhanced by if you're more explosive, and you can't just train heavy all the time, so you have to find alternative ways to do it. And I think you're going to be able to lift more, and you're going to also can help with your work capacity, things like that. There's so many different levels where that explosive training can help you. I mean, I think, the key is for powerlifting, you just don't have to do as much, because like for instance, if you read like the NSCA textbook, it will say you can do like 120 to 140 jumps in a session. I mean, that's a lot. Powerlifting, you get a big benefit from 8 or 10. So, just knowing how to structure it and things like that, you can get a lot of the carryover.
Yeah.
So what are some of your favorite kind of explosive movements for the powerlifter?
Okay, so a few different ones. Just a straight up, just like a vertical jump, box jump, or do you do a box squat jump too, where you sit down in the box, kind of pause and jump up, and then depth jumps too. And then another one I like to do is over the head, backwards medicine ball throws.
Do you include much upper body explosive work, explosive push-up variations?
I do with some people. A lot of, I just kind of tested it out with some people. So yes and no. With that, like the plyometric push-ups, with Big Al, we used to do actually Smith machine throws. So you get in a Smith machine and like actually launch the weight up in the air and catch it. And that was a really good one too. So
Big Al is Al Davis, is a 670,
70-pound raw bencher.
Yeah, and very casual looking about it. Let me just kind of lay down, not much of a setup, and a huge, just massive dude.
Yeah, he did like he did like at the Europa, like a 585 overhand deadlift. He doesn't deadlift.
Damn.
Yeah.
So you've had this exposure to a lot of different sports. Mm-hmm. You were competed in powerlifting, you competed in strongman. You got your brother is an international level shot putter, and then as well as being based out of Metroflex Arlington, people say Gold's is the mecca of bodybuilding, but at least of more modern bodybuilding, it would be Metroflex Arlington.
Sure.
Ronnie Coleman, Branch Warren, Johnny Jackson, that you got to train alongside those guys. I know Coach, Branch and Johnny some. So what are lessons that powerlifters can take from these other strength athletes?
Well, of the bodybuilders, a lot of it is they're pretty dialed in. Like, so powerlifters would be dialed in with their training a lot of times, but outside of the gym, their life's not dialed in. Where a lot of these, at least the higher level bodybuilders, they're very dialed in their life. Like they're going to go to bed at a certain time, they get up a certain time, they have their meals, etc. Where a lot of powerlifters, they might, Monday at 2:00 they bench, but then, they haven't eaten all day or they've eaten 10 times. Like, there's like a lot of sporacity outside of just the training with powerlifters. So I think they can learn that. I think from throwers, I mean, like we're talking about a lot of the explosive stuff, a lot of throwers and stuff are also more flexible. So with powerlifters, a lot of them are rigid because okay, the air conditioning goes out the meat. Well, guess what? It went out for everybody else. So you need to adapt and overcome. Where throwers are better at it. You guys go to Europe and, throw for $10 and,
So flexible in
the shot puts 18 pounds and you just do it.
Flexible, not in a physical sense. I mean, I'm sure throwers are more flexible than powerlifters, but flexible in their approach. That's definitely a thing I think is really important. And it's happening more and more as you get more like nice powerlifting gyms now, as people get so particular about their
bars and shit.
Yeah, their bar, their song, their that's not calibrated plates. Like how could I lift that? I remember training with you at Metroflex. Me and Blaine came out there, and Blaine squatted 815 for a triple on the bent.
That day was hot.
Yeah, it was hot. Not quite as hot as it was yesterday, but probably 90 degrees, humid in Metroflex. Arlington doesn't have air conditioning. That may be a surprise to you. Very dead hot air in there. And Blaine was on this bent ass Texas power bar, and when we were spotting him, he squats 815 for 3. Like the roll,
it's rolling down each rep.
Like every rep it would roll, back and forth like 2-3 inches on his back, and you just gotta get it done.
What was impressive about that workout on Blaine too is, you remember when he's warming up. I mean, I don't know what you were thinking. Why some do 585? I'm like, we're gonna spot this? Like, it's like that's barely moving. And then you did 815 the exact same way.
Yeah. I think people they get too caught up in trying to make everything perfect, and it's when you get to a meet, if it's hot for everyone. If whatever's going wrong in that kind of sense, everyone's got to deal with it. So you can't think that like it's only affecting me.
Yeah. I think throwers do a good job of that because, like they'll go, like my brother was over in Europe, and it's like, in Spain one time they were like, he said they clearly marked somebody else's further, and it just wasn't the case. You just got to deal. And I think throwers, they might have could be drizzling outside, and you do the rotary technique. Okay. Where powerlifters a lot of times freak out about they don't have a deadlift bar at this meet. Okay, well, they don't for anybody else either.
Yeah. What about for strongman?
Strongman, I think a lot of it shows how important back strength is. I think a lot of it's with the work capacity, because as you know, like you can get a lot of benefit from a lot of the strongman events, especially in off-season powerlifting. Because I think one of the, a big myth is there's not a lot of muscle hypertrophy in strongman. There's a lot to be gained from it. Like even in the top level bodybuilders, like I got one guy is going for his pro card right now, Ed Brown, and he's one of the best bodybuilders in Texas. And, we've actually used like farmer's walks and stuff in his training, and he's grown like crazy. So I think with strongman, there's a good, they're not very myopic in their view of training, where a lot of powerlifters are, training like, you get some people that are like, you squat 10 times a week, and that's just what you do. Or, you squat heavy every other week. Like people get so fixated or like myopic in what their ideas are. And I think strongmen are a little more, open-minded to what works.
Yeah, I found that as far as putting on muscle with strongman when I was competing there, that I've never had a problem gaining weight, but as soon as I started doing strongman, I went from weighing 310-ish to 6-8 months later like 330, and was doing a ton of conditioning along with that, and no intentional changes with the diet. But you get a strongman event like a farmer's walk or a yoke, and it's hard to quantify in the sense like with range of motion and sets and reps the way that you could in a bench press or a squat, because you're doing a farmer's walk and the weight isn't, the weight's moving as you walk with it, but it's not moving up and down necessarily. A yoke, you pick it up 6 inches, but if you do a 900, you have someone do a 900-pound yoke walk, and let's say their 1 rep max squat is 900 pounds, which most people is probably quite a bit less than that if they're doing 900 pound yoke. But let's say it's 900 pounds. That 900 pound 1 rep max squat for them lasts from the time they take it out of the rack to put it back in the rack, 10 seconds. But you could be doing, multiple sets of 50 feet with a 900 pound yoke, and you might end up by the end of the workout having had it on your back and be supporting that weight for 2-3 minutes. And I think that's
time under tension. Yeah, it absolutely is, because it's heavy weight and it's long time under tension, and there's no really another way to duplicate it. Because another thing I've found is just to get people, for bodybuilding purposes, like keg carries, heavy sandbag carries, that's going to make your upper back grow. A lot of those guys, you look at them, they have huge upper backs and they're not really doing like a lot of specialized movements for it. It's like, what do you do? Like, oh, I do 3 sets of lat pull downs. You're like, huh? It's just because they're all carrying stuff all the time. So I think there's a huge hypertrophy gain out of strongman training besides just the work capacity and other transference to powerlifting, because I know this kind of figured this out this way is I was training for a strongman contest and there wasn't a lot of deadlifting in the contest. So I was just doing real minimal maintenance, but doing all those other movements, I come back to deadlifting, I'm right back to where I was. And it's kind of that's kind of, interesting that you would think someone at a high level would drop off a lot. At least I did at the time and didn't.
Are there things you have universally you're using from different, from strongman to powerlifting to bodybuilding that obviously aren't traditional, like farmer's carries or something, that you pretty much always include in basically everybody's training?
I wouldn't say that I always include in everybody's training, but I would say I definitely take advantage of the bodybuilding side of things, of doing, more assistance work that would be more bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Say I definitely would, the off-season training methods, use more bodybuilding. I think I've used and sometimes even getting ready for a meet, done like farmer's walks and stuff like that with people. So definitely some outside the box stuff that's worked real well.
Even how close would you have someone to a powerlifting meet still doing something like farmer's walks?
Generally, it would be more cut out 8-10 weeks out, but I've done it up to 4 just because we need something, and that kind of was the ace card we pulled.
So you've been in powerlifting since the mid '90s.
Yep.
How long is that now?
22
years.
Yeah.
Damn.
Wow.
People who were born in 2000 are 18 years old. That's fucking weird. So you've been in powerlifting for 22 years. When you were in it seemed like it was the USPF and then the ADFPA, right? Were kind of the only 2 shows in town.
The USA, I did some USAPL meets too. That was they were ADFPA. I believe in '97 they became the IPF affiliate, or about that time, right?
Sounds about right.
Okay, and then because I know there was in 2000 for sure people going to the IPF Worlds from USAPL. So I think it was about '97. So yeah, first you had I actually started in the AAU.
Okay.
I didn't know any better. I just, or worse. I mean, there was nothing wrong with AAU. I just opened up a Powerlifting USA magazine, said, okay, we live in Santa Barbara. What's going to be around here? Oh, the next thing coming up's this AAU powerlifting. You guys know Martin Drake?
Yeah, it rings a bell.
Where's he? It was in Moreno Valley.
Okay.
So it's kind of I guess, Inland Empire or something. And went down there, did that meet. So it wasn't okay, love the AAU. It was just, that's the closest meet. The next meet was APF, that was in Fresno, just because it was close. And then after that was USAPL, then USPF. And it was mainly just a thing of logistics. Because again, I had a lifting mentor, Steve Hall, but he wasn't really competing that much at the time. So I just opened up Powerlifting USA and find out where to go.
So even then there's maybe 3-4 different federations that pretty much everyone's lifted in. USPF nationals and stuff, huge, like a true nationals competition. And there's been a lot of change in the sport, in those last 22 years. What do you think are some of the biggest positives and maybe a couple negative changes that you'd like to see kind of back more like it was in the 90s or early 2000s? Okay,
so I like now that it's raw, so that offsets any potential negatives in my opinion. So I like the fact that that besides being raw, if people want to argue about monolifts, knee wraps, that kind of crap. I'm like, dude, you don't know how it was. Like, if I'm the czar of powerlifting, we're gonna find it. We're just gonna do a vote, majority rules or whatever, because this is not that big of an issue. If you saw people, wearing triple supply, suits and squatting 4 inches high, this is so much better now that you just deal with it. And so that's the biggest thing is now that it's mostly all raw. Back then, like a lot of times you do like raw, like I want to do raw. I show up to an equipped meet and I just lift raw. So that's the biggest positive, I think.
And the first meet that I did, it was a very odd experience when we were getting rack heights, and there was a pretty balanced mix there between single ply lifters and raw lifting, and we're getting rack heights, and a very, very fat man comes up to me, and I'm talking like 5'9", 400-ish pounds kind of character, and tries to sort of bow up on me, and he's like, "What's your opener?" And I was 725, and he's like, "Oh yeah, me too." He said, "In the bench." And I was like, I'm like, okay, buddy, like, congratulations. And he was, benching in a shirt, and of course went on to bomb out. Couldn't touch. That to me, I think that singular moment solidified, like, wow, I'm never gonna wear equipment.
Yeah, for me, it was more going to like some of the top equip meets and seeing people not lift the most, not warming up. They're struggling with not very much weight. And you see these random, bodybuilders at gyms around Southern California don't even know what powerlifting is, and they're repping 405 on incline. So you're thinking like, okay, something ain't right here.
Before we talk more about this, I remember, you telling me a lot of times about just kind of random lifters at Metroflex, bodybuilders who aren't pro and no one knows them. Do you have one story that like stands out to you as just a lifter that no one's heard of, just being like, holy shit, that guy is doing something crazy?
Yeah, there was one time a guy walked into Metroflex and he was asking, he's like, I don't know if he was like, he can, but I think cops, when I set up stings, are pretty intelligent about it, probably. So I don't think they just send someone in and say, like, can I buy steroids? So he walks in, this bodybuilder, Jay Moore. He's like, hey, where can I get some steroids? And I remember Jay just kept walking towards him and like, get out of here, boy. Get out of here, boy. And they kept walking like faster. Never ran. The guy kept backing up, and he fell down the ditch, dude, like right on the side of Metroflex of that creek. Jay just backed him up into the creek. And the guy fell in there and just walked away. So that was really strange. So Jay Moore was definitely one of the craziest. They're probably not appropriate stories to tell on camera. Guy was crazy. Like, he'd been kicked out of this other gym, the hardcore gym, Stroud's, 15 times. And a guy, if you look him up, named Jay Moore, there's a little bit about him on the internet, but he kind of got out of bodybuilding.
Do you do crazy stuff like he lifted crazy weights? Because we can tell those stories here.
Well, okay. One time he was squatting it was like 585 for 6, and he was like, he was having some kind of blood pressure issues, and he's like, you got any blood pressure medication? I'm like, no, what are you talking about? I was like just people carrying around with them or something. He's like, yeah, my blood pressure's high. And I'm like, okay. And I thought he was going to die. He was about to pass out. And I just remember he's like, if I'm going to die, this is the way I want to go. And he did the last rep, and he stumbled, and I don't think he fainted, but he was on the ground for a while. And you just see like crazy stuff like that all the time. You walked into Metroflex one time, we were out front there. There was, they used to have these boxing matches out front, and
like in the parking lot.
In the parking lot, yeah. And so,
like organized, or like these are just two guys getting.
What happened was
standard.
There was a guy named Rich, and they had this fight night at kind of where you're at is it Arlington Strength? That's North Arlington, right? By 360, sort of.
Yeah, it was like right by a little airport up there.
Okay, well, this is like kind of by the ballpark in that area, and they've. I guess, Jerry Jones has got the strip clubs, and they used to have some rasty ass strip clubs down there. It was called like Peepin' Toms, and just nasty places. And anyways, there was at a fight night down there, this guy Rich, showed up, and he was like seriously the only white face in the whole crowd, and he come in there, and there's this boxer named Cornbread, and you know, it was supposed to be the next big thing, and I got a video of it, and Rich just knocked him out cold, and like 10 seconds. So okay, so he's like, hey, you want to like spar with me? I'm like, see, I used to box, and I'm like, okay. And I didn't know what to expect because this guy was like crazy, and like Brian's asking me, so how was it with Rich? I said, oh, it was, you know, good. He's like, oh, that's good. He respects you then, because I guess he'd had like other people who'd just start wailing on him and stuff. So, anyways, he was gonna do some fights, so we were actually like doing civilized sparring. I mean, like really hitting each other, but not like, you know, if you hit someone and stun them, you don't try to like jump on top of them type of thing. So other people were seeing it, and they thought it was, you know, like for real fighting. So they started having boxing matches out front, and there'd be like blood in the park. Like these people were, like, I mean, just random people in the gym were. And there was like this fat Mexican mechanic across the way, and he would always yell at Rich, like, oh, you know, back in Golden Gloves, and like Rich and him would get in these like arguments, and Rich would like beg him to come spar him. The guy'd be like, I'll do it later. So we'd always have like crazy things like that in the parking lot. There's like a little fight club in the parking lot, and I mean, there's one in there apparently. I wasn't there for this, but one of the bodybuilders who's now dead, I guess he'd run into one of his girls, and there was like some male stripper from like, you know, La Bears, which is like the Chippendales of this area, and he was squatting 315, and apparently this guy pulled him down by the hair with a weight on his back.
Oh shit!
So like, there's been like some crazy stuff at that place. It's so much more civilized. Like before Brian got married, there'd be like just like random strippers working out, like lunging in the parking lot and stuff.
That they should have had like if they had YouTube or like a reality show back then. I feel like it could have been a good one.
There was some reality show that came to Metroflex, and I guess it just didn't pan out.
They're like, oh, this can't be on TV.
No, they were like, they were like, let's feature Branch and all these people, and it's like, okay, but like Branch is like a productive member of society, so it's really not that entertaining outside of the gym.
Yeah, so you got all these different books and products you've done. Jailhouse Strong, Gas Station Ready, Tijuana Barbell Club, all these. You got any new projects in the works?
Yeah, so on June 29th, it should be out on Amazon. It's called Grounded in Gratitude. It's a gratitude journal, and it's a lot of different mental strategies on how to improve yourself mentally, because a lot of times with these kind of exercises and things, I think they become like unproductive, like there's no action to take. So the difference here is there's like mental strategies than what action to actually take. So it's going to have a lot of stuff that I've used like with lifters and stuff, so like mental strategies and things like that.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think it's going to do really well. I'm excited about it.
Nice.
Awesome. So this was another episode of the Jug Life podcast. If you like it, go on iTunes, give us a 5-star review, write us something funny or nice, like Bub1998 said, the Jug Life is my go-to podcast for all things strength sports. As a powerlifter, I thought I would skip over the episodes on weightlifting until I realized even the content focused on Oli lifting, don't call it that, is interesting and valuable. Chad and Max have a great chemistry together and bring complementary perspectives to every subject they cover.
Beautiful chemistry.
The consistent quality is balanced well with questionable shoe fashion. Put your Air Dads up there.
Yeah.
Those are the David Ricks shoes. And tune in once and you'll be hooked. Thank you very much, Mr. or Miss Bub1998. Shoot me an email, chad@jtsstrength.com, and we'll send you a gift card or a shirt or something. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to our YouTube, 3+ videos a week, brought to you by the world's strongest videographer, Shorty Sedang. If you're interested in online coaching, you can visit juggernautcoaching.com, powerlifting, weightlifting, super total, strongman, or power building. What other stuff? Oh, August 19th, we will be on Long Island at the Performance Summit. Max, myself, Dr. Mike, Dr. Quinn, Dr. James, covering the 5 pillars of successful training: technique, program design, nutrition, mobility, and recovery. Josh, where can they find you on social media and all that stuff?
JoshStrength.com is our website. On Instagram at Jailhouse Strong, on Facebook at the Josh Strength Method, and Twitter at Josh Strength, and you'll find me.
You can find me Max_8 on Instagram, on Facebook, or email me maxjtsstrength.com.
And I'm Chad Wesley Smith, at Chad Wesley Smith and at Juggernaut Training on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.